So, tell me more about the trouble.
You mean you haven't heard?
Heard what?
About all the trouble.
What trouble?
All that trouble in Two-Starf.
No, that's what I want to know.
Rough business. Terrible stuff, even for this part of the world. Makes me sad just thinking about it.
But what happened?
All right, keep your knickers on.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the LARP News podcast. Today we've got another special, which is a real treat for all of us. If you two would like to introduce yourselves, that'd be wonderful.
Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Matt.
And what do you do at Empire?
Well,
So I play Skywise Fowl, and Andy.
and compared to Matt, I'm a total scrub.
Yeah,
I
but
play-
you're orcs, right? And importantly, you are the orcs who, way back yonder, when we first went to Empire, we ended up getting into a confusing situation where we introduced ourselves as the Ashborn, and then found out there were other Ashborn, and there was a lot of confusion. It turned out they were actually orcs. These are the Ashborn who we bumped into that day, which is absolutely bizarre. And then not only that, but then they set up the Orcs Planet, which is a wonderful YouTube channel. So I was getting to the point, I was thinking about this, and I was like, there must be some Ashborn truthers out there who are extremely, it seems very suspicious, doesn't it, that the Ashborn all of a sudden decided to set up YouTube channels and podcasts, and now it's and now we're sat here together. It's like this weird Inception Ashborn
That's the
thing.
And then we start interacting as our characters, and it's like...
And then we'll start branching out into other nations.
Yeah, by the way, that was... I clocked, when we first started talking, I clocked halfway through. I recognised that voice, but didn't put it together. And it was only when I left you after that first conversation, I met you again outside the Senate building, that the cogs just about clicked over. And I was like, are you, by the way? And it was just yeah.
It's because I've been watching the Orcs Planet, and we'd been at LARPCon. I bumped into you guys, and so I actually knew who they were. And I think I kind of bumped into you guys while you were talking.
You told me. You were the one that was like, no, that's Matt. And I was just like, fuck, I knew it. I knew something.
Yeah. Oh.
I still feel guilty about not returning that letter.
That's nothing. Yeah, housekeeping. Yeah, don't feel bad about that at all.
I lost it, and then I found it, and then I lost it again, and then
Sure,
you died.
Then I died. Yeah. To be fair, I can't even remember what I wrote in the letter now. It was something about friendship or something.
It was a bit spicy.
Was it?
I think it involved some sort of manifest destiny.
Yeah,
or,
there was a little
That does
names
sound
aren't
full on,
coincidental.
heresy.
New players kind of we'd like to be friends, but let's do it in character.
To be fair, my last character was an absolute zealot in everything he did, so it does make sense that I might be write a letter like that.
Well, my response was I don't really want. I was sitting there I don't want to be a douche, but my letter was just, you should probably talk to a priest.
Yeah, I've got a few numbers for a good few priests that you should be talking to. Just sit down once a week with them and try and iron out that heresy.
That pretty much sums it up perfectly.
Right, let's. Why did you choose orcs? What's the decision making? Because we'll try and talk about a few orky type things. From were you? How much experience did you have with LARP before you chose orcs, or was it orcs immediately?
So Empire was my first LARP, and I did a year of Wintermark first.
Right.
And that was really just a year of trying to figure out what the hell is this new hobby that I found out about.
So Empire was your first LARP? Okay.
So it was my first LARP, and then I did a couple of small LARPs, and then I came back a bit more well-rounded when I started as my orc.
Sure.
But yeah, the first year was sort of figuring it all out, and I really wanted to be an orc, but I thought that's a bit too much. I don't think I'm that invested or ever going to get that much involved. And then
there's also a price point, right? Immediately you have to buy the mask.
I didn't even consider that. It was just, I don't think I'm going to enjoy it that much.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know what to expect, right? When you first walk into it, and I mean, we just sort of thought, let's give this a go, and it's no idea. And to be honest with you, you just almost can't prepare yourself for how you're going to experience your first LARP.
So then you learn to hate Wintermark.
Well, I did 3 events there. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed just the novelty of LARPing, but I wanted to get more invested in it, and the player group I was with at the time was quite small, and we were all going our separate ways. And I met an orc in play, and we got chatting, and we sort of became friends, and then we ended up, Andy and I sort of moved in together, and I think I convinced you.
You were like, this is what the orcs are like, and I was just like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. I think by sort of talking to you about it, I convinced myself it was a good idea, and we just thought, you know what, let's start the new year, let's just try orcs and see how it goes.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And we've never looked back.
That's a good attitude, though. And what was it like when you were first... So you got your mask in, right? You're getting your character sorted, you're trying to get some of the lore for orcs, right? Was it weird the first time you donned the mask, time in, and then everything? I can imagine that being quite full on, right?
The first time we donned our Ashbourne masks, we went to LARPCon.
Yeah.
Probably 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe?
Yeah.
4 years ago.
It was the first LARPCon we ever went to, and we debuted our orcs.
And we looked so sort of, I don't want to say simple, because everything's aspirational, but we very much started with a small amount of kit that we were going to build up in play.
Sure.
And looking back, it's kind of like, oh dear.
I look back at my kit and I just go like this. I just put my head in my hands. I can't.
I think there's definitely we weren't terrible when we first rocked up, but I definitely look at some of that kit and go, Jesus, that was, you know. I mean, but also you're trying to get, if you went to someone who's been playing LARP for years and years and years and really broke down how much effort and time and money they put into their kit, it's lost. You can't ask someone immediately, spend £500 on your this character before they leave. You have to build it up. But there's also character as well, right? You got to learn your new character. You can do stuff on paper, but once you're in the field, then maybe a pendant is a lot more you, and you didn't realise, you know?
Yeah, I mean, your character is the important thing. What you look like is just sort of what makes you become that character. And we were, I say we kind of look down on what we used to dress as, but it was entirely on brief. We were totally in keeping with the rest of the nation and with our group. There was nothing wrong with our kit. It was just
you're self-conscious.
Yeah,
it's human nature. I mean, and also being a sensitive person, you're going to be, oh man, look at me, and I wish I did more. Whereas to anyone, it's probably all internal, right? No one's looking at you going, oh fucking hell, look at that guy's fucking.
No one else minds. Yeah. And we went into the nation. It was a bit smaller at the time, and we went in, and everyone else was. We seemed to think everyone else was well established, and they'd been going for a couple of years, and everyone looked amazing. And we did look just as good, really, in hindsight.
And I think also, though, there's the whole aspect of you almost need your character, or you need to be your character long enough for that character to kind of tell you how you're going to project your visual appearance. Because going through certain events as your character gives you, maybe you get a scar, or maybe some event, you acquire a trinket off somebody, or you do something in character with somebody else that you want to represent on your person in some way. And slowly your kit tells a story. It's not costume, right? It becomes something else. It becomes a story, a living story.
I completely. My new character is was very, it's slowly being added. Even your very kind gift has added to that and creates. Even if it is just grounding me, if it's irrespective of anyone else and how they view my costume, I understand what these different elements mean to me and how they have developed over the time, So I'm by the time time next year, my character's going to be jangly. I'm going to have so much crap on me, but right now it's slowly but surely building.
It's lived in, isn't it? It's your kit becomes real as you wear it, and your kit gains the story. It's like what items of worth are for orcs. The story that you are creating as your character is embodied in your kit, and it grows with you.
Yeah.
So your kit after a year is always going to be more diverse and more intricate than it was to begin with, and it's only going to continue.
Dude, the psychology of having a new character and figuring out who they are, and realizing parallels with your own personality and all that stuff. I mean, it's a fascinating business, is it not? To be oh fuck. I thought that was completely. I was being different by selecting that as something my character was going to do, and then you realise actually all I did was do something that was so like me that I didn't even realise until you see it as a mirror.
I think of all the characters I've sort of created, as I sort of gain more experience in LARP, and as I just sort of move forward with the hobby and what we do, my characters become less and less like characters and more like me, because you realise you can just accentuate a bit of your own personality.
Exactly.
Or you can take more from your own experiences rather than something you just made up.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in that, and it's almost the best way to go, right? You want to kind of
I think it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable.
Yes.
Like I think it's like it's part of the process. If you try to detach yourself from your new character, it's so hard. Like and also like let me put it this way, like your intentions. Even if you choose, I have this aim, and then you suddenly realise, wow, I've been working towards this aim, and it's completely exactly how I am as a person, right? Or at least puts me in a situation where I can be myself. It's weird, right?
Well, let's say you watch a narrative, so you're watching like a movie or whatever, and you're seeing like Anthony Hopkins play a character, right? And it's like that's a staged production where he gets to obviously go through the process of being that character and play that character out. It's very different from a LARP where you're living moment to moment. You've got to do all the things that are seen off
No
screen.
one wrote you a script, is what you're saying, right?
And you get, you've got to go to the loo as your character. You've got to go and buy a drink and get drunk as your character.
Yeah, this
You've
is one
got to
thing.
say the wrong thing at the wrong time
That's definitely
as your
something
character.
that you should consider when making a character or your kit is how to go to the loo.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it
I
is.
wish someone had told me that. Like my first iteration of Raw, I literally couldn't turn around in the toilet stall.
Yeah.
My kit was
we're
so
Navarre,
big.
so we're always armed. Like wearing a cape and having a big fucking 43-inch sword attached to your hip. Going for a shit is a colossal pain in the arse. Like it is, and it's like there's mud everywhere, and you're like, I hope that's mud. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot to think about in those few moments.
We kind of go in groups, and there's a whole de-arming process.
Which
is almost like that Mad Max sequence of handing over.
There's always like a Navarre outside the toilets, armed to the goddamn hilt because they're just carrying everyone else's weapons.
Designated armor carrier. It's really weird, isn't it? Like I don't know if this happens with you guys, but I've noticed more and more that I'll change things subconsciously without realising it as like a reaction to like things that have happened in game. So like if I look at the evolution of my kit from when like I first started, when Raw was naive and Wanderlust, like she was actually like quite chubby and sort of more hobbit-like than orc-like, if I'm honest.
No, I get what you mean, right?
And like as she's sort of gotten more like jaded when everything went wrong, like she got like, scabby and it was pretty grim, and then like now she's sort of like regrowing confidence, and like my kit just looks so much better.
It's interesting that like when I first went to LARP, it was the shiny, pristine costumes that I would be like, wow, they look amazing, and now I'm like, look how much shit is on that guy. Like he's covered in filth and everything looks weathered, and that's like the really good stuff for me now. The kind of weathered, actual, real look. Obviously, that doesn't work for every nation and every.
So what you're saying
but...
is you want to look like someone from Empire Strikes Back, not Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
But I think you're completely right. I think there is this whole aspect of as your character progresses through their story arc, if we call it that, their living story arc, and it's not even a story; it's the life of that character. Events occur, and your kit will change to represent them. So my Talus has become a little bit more flamboyant. He's got a bit more glitz on him than other members of his group.
He's punching above his weight is what he's doing. Right. He's from the council estates, putting on a suit and going down like Oxford Street or whatever, and trying to be a young gentleman. It's ridiculous.
But no, I completely agree. And then there's like the emotional experience of being your character and playing out certain aspects of your character, being challenged in different ways, and succeeding and failing, and all those elements that are part of your character's story are represented.
We're trying to, like, I'm kind of playing around with now is the idea of my character when he was created. He's one thing, but how should I let like the events that have happened to that character start to shift and change him, right? And I'd say that your character is Talus. Everyone he knows is dead now. Yeah. There's only one surviving member from the original lot, right?
It's
like
true.
Every Friday night we have a funeral, right? That's got to have an effect on someone, right?
Like
I
lead the funeral, right?
Say goodbye to all of your friends, event after event after event after event, and that not to have a crushing effect, or not maybe, I don't know, like how much of a psychopath is Talus?
No, and it's...
I mean, oddly enough, it was a very similar experience that, like, you know, you died and then Brag went missing, which was our first warlord, and I was just like, there, like, okay, I guess.
Yeah. And you realise how much of other people's characters define your character sometimes. And you're like the first time you went off for a skirmish and I was left on my lonesome.
Yes.
What the fuck do I do on my own? Like, I have what do? I just wander around aimlessly looking lost. You know?
I think the important thing is you kind of, when you create your character, like, so we made the classic tragic backstories for our characters, which I think a lot of people probably do. We kind of joke about it a fair bit. But in some ways, the most important things that happen to you should be on the field, right? If they're not, then you're not really giving weight to the experience of being there, which is surely the purpose why you pay the money.
At least allow space for those things to happen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't feel like my character's ready for a heel turn, but a heel turn could definitely happen, right? With the right situation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the interesting thing about having a game like Empire, where you are relatively safe.
Yes.
So you can think about your character living for years as opposed to events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so broad in its scope that Fal, you know, if you look at him in sort of his occupation, I've changed the focus of what I do throughout his lifespan. You know, I've changed my personal resource to denote what he does outside of Anvil. And I've had the opportunity to start a character that was, you know, maybe like a librarian or a scholar, who then became a politician, who then became a bureaucrat, who's done all these different things. It's still the same character, but I've had the chance to grow him and evolve him and his opinions. And there's been times when Fal's opinions have differed to mine, and that's quite... That's very bizarre.
That's
almost trying
hard
to
do,
think...
though. Like, that's the one of the hardest things to do in LARP is to go against your, like, either your social programming or your personality, right? And to actually live that out.
I mean,
like,
I'm
just
fortunate in that because we're orcs and we wear masks. I guess it's a bit similar to with the League. I mean, there are times when I've done things as Fal, and I've been in encounters and meetings and things with Fal, and I've had conversations and I've done things, and I've had to come away and walk back to the orc camp and just take my mask off for 5 minutes and just decompress and be like, oh.
I think there is a thing when we go monstering and you put that orc mask on. There is, and maybe you guys will have a lot more experience of this, but there is something about actually putting a mask on.
It affects you like
you
would never do the shit you do without the mask on when you put the mask on.
It's true.
You would never you would never stand in front of a battle line with your tongue waggling around like you do, goading people
all the time.
Like I'm shocked. I'm shocked by you when you do that sometimes, and I've known you for years. You know what I mean? It's
I mean, so and do you guys go through that, like the experience of donning the mask, as it were? I guess there's something like deeply cultural, like almost kind of like inbuilt into humans. Like there's the aspect of like putting a mask on is maybe something.
Well, maybe the dangers of anonymity, right? Yeah, like that. Maybe you feel you can get away with a bit more than you would without, and that double-edged sword, right? Kind of fun to kind of play around with and enjoy. You know,
I mean, it's certainly. I mention this often. I wish I'd found LARP earlier because it's given me so much more confidence, and I've grown as a person because of it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's helped me grow the most has been putting a mask on and donning a completely different character for myself that I've almost been able to be more me without me sort of realising.
Yeah.
Because I've had this almost defence that other people see and can interact with that's made me more comfortable just being me. And then when I'm at home, when I've not got the mask on, I've then sort of realised, oh well, if I can do it then, why can't I do it now?
Yeah.
I find you ever have that thing when you're monstering and you look at the look of fear in someone else's eyes? Like, that's a weird feeling because I'm like the least intimidating person ever, right? Whereas I know what I look like when I know what people looking at me are fear in their eyes, and they're like, "Oh fuck!" And it's just little old me, but I'm wearing a mask, and therefore you can present this terrifying death figure that's going to come and get you. But It's just little old me underneath a mask,
Yeah.
acting the big lad. Do you know what I mean? Like,
So
it's
I
not
think-
real.
I think out of all of us, I get that the most because like Raw actually looks really scary.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
got like blind eyes and
Your kit looks amazing. In fact, well, I should say
Thank
straight
you.
up, both of you look incredible, by the way, on the field.
thank you. Like she's kind of perceived to be like someone important, and like I don't realize how intimidating that is for other
Yeah.
people because obviously like.
Well, shit,
Look
I
at
threatened
me.
that guy. Remember, I threatened that guy.
Yeah.
And then he was like, it meant nothing to me at the time, and I walked away, and it was just a silly thing. But the guy had to get walked back to his tent by his friends because he was worried I was going to come back and murder him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a murder cult going on, and I was worried about Ian getting killed by the murder cult, but they thought I was the murder cult. So it was like, so basically the guy was like, oh my god, that Navari guy's going to come back and murder me.
Yeah.
I walked away, had a drink, had the rest of my evening, didn't think about it for months until the guy bumped into me on Thursday, and I was just like, holy shit. Again, not threatening person, but in the right circumstances, the stuff of nightmares, the Navari in the dark. Do you know what I mean? That's going to come and murder you.
There's so much you can explore, I think, with LARP, and it's as I say, as the story progresses and as you experience things, and the thing is, you can fail, and you can fail in an environment where your failure is something that you can kind of learn from, and your character can expand from, and then it teaches you that when you fail in real life, that's something you can learn from and expand from as well.
We talk about this a lot, right? With the idea of like, and this isn't me advocating LARP therapy, right? I think there are professionals who are very good at dealing with serious psychological problems, right? And it should never be confused for something else.
Yeah.
However, there are aspects to it where you can play around with certain things and maybe have realised truths about yourself by role playing with other people. You know, like like I said, there are limits.
I think that there
to
are
this.
limits to it, but I think it's an interesting thing, and I think just as you said, Matt, just the experience of going through play, you can take confidence from just experience, right? Because you just get to do things that you don't get to do.
When you're like going to the Senate, you
so
seem
I've
chill as hell there now, right? You're chilling up there, and it's just like. But I guarantee the first time you walked into those buildings and had to do anything was like blood's pumping in your ears, and you're trying to keep track of what you're about to say, and it's a terrifying emotional reaction. And now you're just like, no, I belong here. This is totally
I
fine.
will happily stand in front of Senate and tell everyone they are wrong, like I did we mentioned it before, and not think anything of it.
Yeah.
And forget, in fact, that I'm the intimidating one that people are not quivering in front of, but are like, maybe I should listen, and maybe it is. But I would never have thought I would be able to do that before, and I am amazed how much I've grown.
Let's talk.
Because of this one character.
Let's talk a little bit about politics, because I'd really like to get into that before we do anything else.
Before we divert.
I think it's probably worth firstly going into what your roles are in politics.
That's a good idea.
Because
Yeah.
we should set that up first so people know.
Well, my role in politics is to show up for elections and lose terribly.
Yeah.
Right, Matt, what's your job?
So I obviously give you hope that's unfounded, and
Yeah, exactly.
think that you can do these
You
things.
wind me up and set me off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Skywise Val is the Imperial Consul. So I'm part of the Empire's Foreign Affairs team.
Yeah.
So I get to interact in a really interesting part of the game, which is a bit of the game that doesn't really exist, that affects the wider world.
I love
It's
it.
utterly bizarre to think I'm playing a made-up game in which I'm talking about made-up people that are never going to hit the field, but have impact in this wider world. It's weird levels of stuff going on.
I find it a really interesting. I find the whole foreign service, if that's what you'd call it, right? Like, it's a really interesting part of the game because it's kind of separate from the other aspects of the political game, right?
It's strange in that you've got these big bodies of state. You've got Senate, Synod, Conclave, Military Council, and there are structures in which they're elected, and they've all got their lovely different things that they do, and it's very open to lots of people getting involved and climbing that ladder. And then you've got the ambassadors and the sort of associated titles, and it comes out of Senate. It's a Senate elected position, but it's sort of something where you can't really, from my experience, I couldn't really get involved in it until I was sort of doing the job. Now I was fortunate in that because I started FAL with a goal, and I kind of picked the thing I wanted to do, so I just went hard on it from my first event. And I was able to get involved with senators and influential people and sort of get my foot in the door because I had that one thing I wanted to do.
Did you know many of those senators and people before?
I knew no one out of character, and I didn't know the characters.
So you literally went out, found them, had a chat with them.
The very first person I spoke to was one of the Navari senators, Senator for Tharunin. Who, I'm not sure if she plays the game anymore. But we were talking about the Great Forest Orcs. That was the big sort of thing going on at the time. And I got really heavily involved in their well-being and wanting them to join the Empire and sort of championed them. Came to realise that, in fact, I actually went for advisor on Orc Affairs originally because I wanted to get involved in the Senate.
Yeah, interesting. That seems more you, actually.
I wanted to be a senator and sit on the Senate floor. And I realised that Imperial Consul is kind of the advocate for the Orcs outside of the Empire.
Yeah.
Or at least the Empire's voice to them.
To kind of put it into a little bit of context, there were people trying to push you into that role when you were an Ashbourne.
Yeah.
Like, there were people definitely eyeing you up for that.
Headhunted.
Yeah, basically. The Orc senator was saying, like, do you want to be the proxy?
Yeah.
I was really trying to get you to be the proxy.
This was because I'd come to the game with the focus of wanting to get as involved as possible. And so if you were to ask me how do people get into politics,
Come on, lay it out. Stage one.
So you need to have a focus. You need to know what you want to do.
Yeah. Stage one.
So
have a plan.
You did it right in that you looked up all of the Yarmish fluff and you got really involved in the wiki.
A little bit too much, to be fair.
Not too much, I'd say. So you knew what you wanted to do, and you had a goal, and you had a title, and you knew the event it was getting re-elected. So you went around and you canvassed. It's really hard to get people involved who just come along and say, I want to help.
Yeah.
I want to give you a hand and get involved in stuff, because the things I'll get you to help with are quite boring and quite mundane. And if I need you to send a letter to someone or go and take a message and get someone else to come and see me, that's not what I would want to do.
Yeah,
and I think like sometimes like coming to the game with an agenda and something it doesn't, and you don't necessarily always have to worry about keeping that agenda secret, or you can choose how you display that agenda, but just having something in mind that you want to try and achieve,
even if it's an agenda that you find out is not necessarily going to work, but then makes you realise, there's something else I can do. If you've got an idea of something that you want to go for,
there has to be a kernel of something there, right?
But this is also like you can get false feedback, right? Like, so my run to try and get elected, the first election was just I was just doing it to stand up, right? The second time was like I sent out letters and did all that stuff like this, but just because I didn't get the seat doesn't mean the campaign wasn't run correctly. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can start to like self-doubt yourself and being like, well, fuck, if I've done this and I've done that, and it's just like, actually, maybe that's just how that was going to be. You know what I mean? Like, you needed a lot more time to prep for that and a lot more hand shaking.
You've also got to remember that everyone else hasn't their own agenda, and like in real life politics, often the senators' decisions are made before they hit the floor, and they know exactly who they're going to vote for.
Definitely.
So if you're not in with them, then you might never get anywhere. But you can't let that dissuade you, because
I actually had senators come up to me after the vote. I won't be specific at all in this, but saying like, no, you did really good, and being really positive about it, even if they didn't vote for me. And that was like quite telling, because it's like, you don't have to do that, and the fact you are coming up and doing that is like tells me a lot about what just happened. Do you know what I mean?
I think also that should be lauded, and people should do that, because you've got to remember, even if you are politically PvPing someone, even if you're
I love it.
Even if you're actively working against them, we're still playing a game.
Yeah,
we're still here to have fun.
Yeah,
and the best thing is to have an adversary or a competitor that you can then shake hands with afterwards and say, yeah, you won, you did really well, and for the other person to say the same.
Yeah.
Plus, you need the
Or
risk of
hire
failure,
assassins and
right?
murder them after the event,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But you need that risk of failure, right? And you need someone to be able to present you with a risk of failure. If it was just a case of that you can turn up and you get elected because you're you and you're awesome, it would not have the same weight.
We always talk about this. Like, there's never been a good story where the hero just successfully defeats everything they have, and you need conflict to be able to make good story, and it's hard for you to be the character in the story where you have to face the hardship, but that's the reality. It will make you better at everything by going through struggle, you know.
Some of my best encounters have been where I've massively failed, and where I've done things that perhaps out of character I know are impossible, but in character I've got to believe they are. And I've been fortunate in that I've gone into encounter tents with NPCs, and I've been able to directly engage in some of the sort of world plot that's going on. And I've sat there across the table from another Orc delegate, and we've been having an argument, and we've all been trying to convince each other, and we've gone away absolutely having achieved nothing. And it's been awful, and Fal has doubted himself, and he's doubted the other people around him, and they've thought he's not fit for the role. And we've come out, and I've sort of come out of it, and I thought, that was really fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed
It's those immersion moments, though, which I find, like, I think we talked about this way back when we were first doing it. Like, I want one or two moments of pure immersion when I'm there. Yeah. And you can sometimes bump into immersion that you aren't even aware of.
You're not prepared for as well.
Because, like you said, getting hard out into a political thing, you don't even realise how emotionally invested you are, and how... I'm infuriated. You're infuriated about a fictional world, right? Like, this is like just to step back a moment and be like, holy shit, well, I'm really invested in this, and I had no idea. Look how fucking passionate I am, and how much I disagree with this.
And sometimes that's built just off the fact there is opposition, right? And the fact, like, if there was no friction, and you could just slide along and do whatever you wanted.
Where are you going with this?
but you know what I mean. Then it would have a completely different message. Like, but the fact that you can fail and then take that away with you and grow from it is also
that's the intention, right? Like, there's no such thing as a loser if you learn from your mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And that is a very easy thing to say in a nice afternoon wherever, I won't say where we are, but whereas when you're on the field immediately afterwards, you're like, fuck! Do you know what I mean? Like, it's difficult to sometimes pull away from that, you know what I mean? Maybe it takes half a bottle of whiskey and a good sit-down chat to get you back to where you need to be. But
I mean, it's to take it to an extreme. There have been times where I have considered retiring my character or taking a break from Empire from an event, because what I've done that event has been so sort of catastrophically against what I wanted to happen, and has been so sort of. But it's hard to understand, and it's like, oh, why was it that difficult, and why could we not do things? And then stepping back and sort of realising what happened, and then coming almost with renewed vigour, it makes the next thing that you strive for so much more.
Yeah, that it makes it worth it when you get it, right?
And...
But I know what you're saying, and there's also that whole aspect of, occasionally in life you fluff your lines, okay, and that's how life is, and that's how LARP is. Occasionally you go up there to do the thing, and you don't get a second take. That was your go, and you fluffed your lines, but that's something you still have to live LARP with, right? Maybe you stuttered, you looked nervous, or. And it didn't go the way you wanted, or you just said the wrong thing, right? And that is life. That is part of life, and that's part of LARP. And then you can't divorce them, right?
I think sometimes the problem is that when you have a character and you aim at one thing, and if you're denied from that thing, you suddenly realise, who the fuck is my character? Right? Yeah. There's a problem, like when you sometimes you have to try and separate action from character, right? Like, is your character because it does a certain thing, or is trying to do a certain thing, or is that character just the character and the actions are a byproduct of their personality? That's something I've been playing around with for the last couple of months, is like, because you touched on it in your very good last Orcs Planet episode, where you're talking about like your direction of your character, and during the episode, you were like, "Is this worthwhile?" And I'm sitting there at my computer going, "Yes, yes, it is." To hear people talking about it and the struggle of being like, "Well, what the fuck do I do with my character next?" I thought that they would be this, and that's all they cared about. But then you're actually like folding back into the idea of like, well, what's your character like if they can't do that thing, or they failed at that thing, or they don't know what to do? Like, listful is a thing to do, you know. Unfortunately, we only get 4 events a year, and we want to maximise our fucking time. Most of the bad feelings I have about a post Empire event is me not maximising my time I had. And that's where the real core behind things that upset me are from, which is like, I wasted my time. I could have been doing this.
That's one of the things to remember is your events are something like 48 hours long or something. It's a ridiculously short time, and it's so concentrated. You're going to have that heightened emotion and that heightened investment in that really small period of time.
And it's months as well building up to that. Because you're like, right, game face, I've got my letters sent out, I've got this planned, Friday evening I'm doing this, I need someone to come with me so I can do this, and you have this whole plan of what you're going to be there and when you're going to do it and why you're going to be doing it. And then when that doesn't come to fruition, you're like, well, shit.
And then on top of all of those really important things that you want to do, you also want to fit a bit of drinking in. You want to fit a bit of socialising in. You want to fit a bit of just touring around, enjoying the sights and sounds.
Well, I think the key here is, Ian, to try and involve all of those things
at the same time.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Like, there's so many aspects that you're trying to weave into your event. And as you say, the time pressure is there. And it's when you first go and you know, it's your first go up, you're almost kind of worried about, oh my word, what am I going to do for this huge amount of time? Am I just going to be like hiding in my tent, too nervous to go out to talk to anybody? And then when you actually a couple events in, you're like running from place to place almost, like in your mind, trying to get everything done, because there just actually isn't that much time. Time in is 6 o'clock on the Friday. And then...
Oh God, even you talking about it now, I'm so hyped right now. Oh my God.
I can't wait for... Well, we've actually got a player event in, hopefully.
Well, we've got I've got maybe 2 before. Yeah, but I don't know whether I'll be able to... Yeah, anyway, that's a conversation for another time. But player events and stuff. But just to show up at Anvil again. Like I'm so game on now, right? Like, I'm like... There's lots of nice, fun bits of game that are coming out in the future, and all of them I'm just so excited to see how they play out. Victory or no, they're going to be really fun to see how it works out.
And I think a really good thing that feeds into this is crafting. And in crafting in downtime, and of course this is going to link in heavily with you guys, but I really enjoy doing like making things to keep my hype bubbling over.
Yeah, how are you guys with that? Because we should say that you guys run the Armchair Armory, right? Yeah, which is what's the website, just so people can Google what they're listening?
Yeah, I think it's armchair-armory.co.uk.
I think literally if you Google Armchair Armory,
they're the only ones.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, and what do you produce?
So we make rings, metal rings for making mail, chainmail, and that's basically what we produce. Yeah. As a side, like, we make armour from it for people to buy as well.
It's like, it's high quality stuff, right? It's nice bits of kit, right?
We also do costume commissions, and I do a lot of sculpting, and I do all those little badges that everyone seems to love.
I do love the badge.
But yeah, because when I made my Landlar armour and I met you guys at LARPCon, and we were just, you guys were in full kit and I was in my hoodie and stuff, just being like a loser casual. But no, it was cool because we just were able to talk about crafting, and at that point I didn't know you guys actually had Armchair Armory. But you kind of offer, you know, if you need any, probably get in touch and you'd sort of help with like putting my Landlar and stuff together and things. And it was like, I think it's like, but I'm kind of more getting at just like the act of making things.
I think it leads back to what we're talking about with character, right? And like maybe potentially making something.
It makes it feel real.
Yeah,
I think, and because at least for us, you know, orcs in game make all their own clothing. It's very much a hand-me-down culture and keeping things going and repairing things. So when I'm sat there doing some embroidery for 12 hours in a row, because it takes so long to do it all by hand.
Yeah.
I can imagine Fal doing it.
Yeah.
And I can almost sit there in his mindset while I'm making kit, thinking about what he would be thinking about.
I had the same... Yeah, sorry, Karen.
Sorry, I think making kit is probably the biggest thing that gets me excited for games. Yeah. Like, easily. Like, when I redesigned my kit for Fanmir's Feast thing, I decided I needed some posher kit.
Yeah.
Fancier.
Yeah, I was fed up with eating reindeer hair. And I didn't want the other people around me to have to eat reindeer hair as well, because that would be awful. But yeah, that was, it was so good, and like all the stuff that came out of making that was good as well. I was just like buzzing,
I think
because it was right in the long dark. It was just the best sort of.
And I think when you make something and then you know it's better than what you had. I mean, it doesn't have to be the best as well. That's the other thing. I've made a whole bunch of pretty average stuff but the process of doing it teaches me how I could do it better.
It's constant improving.
And then it's also the knowledge that, hey, I made this thing and this is just going to make my life so much easier. Because I had this whole thing of like, I'm an archer and a physic, and I have to try and like have all this stuff on me at the same time. So I had to make like a little bandolier thing and like a sash, and then I've got like all this stuff kind of strapped to me, and I'm like, logistically, how is this going to work, right? And then when I actually came up with some solutions to actually make my life easier, and I've got like a weird two-belt system now.
But that's a good way to change from costume to kit, right?
Yes.
Is that you're actually going to use it practically.
Yeah.
Like I need to think about a way to carry potions on me effectively, because I still shove my stuff in my pocket and it's all very as I have no fizz reps for it. It's like all of that needs to be upgraded, and it will also help my kit while doing it. So it's kind of got really nice multiple aspects to it that are going to work very well, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've been making a bunch of potions and stuff lately, and but as you say, I've made like 100 or so. I'm going to make another massive batch, but
we're going to make some bank. We're going to make some bank. If you want some sweet fizz reps, you know where to find us. Homie needs to get paid.
Yeah, we really need money.
We really need to get paid. Yeah, think of it more like charity, okay?
But you're right. The process of making it, I actually because especially if you pick something that is quite a long process to make, right? And I had the same doing my book as well, which took quite a long time to do. You kind of get into the mindset of, you know, what is my character doing while they're making this?
It's also,
but
you're thinking you're just thinking about LARP.
Yeah,
you're just thinking about your character. Like even when it comes to stuff like we're editing the podcast or doing anything else to do with it, it's mind's time taken thinking about that. And it's like the human brain, like mine does anyway, it grinds away at things, right? Like I don't know what solutions are to things, but I just think about it and think about it and think about it, and then slowly solutions or ideas start to pop out the other side of it, right? And by you weaving, right? Yeah. What do you get? Your brain has to do something while you're weaving, definitely. Right? And it's like gets you into that lovely, like that hypno state that you get into. Yeah. Like
it's almost a type of meditation.
Yeah, yes, very much so.
Very much so.
Yeah, well, meditate. Like there are forms of meditation where you literally, you know, like Catholics with their beads. There's a similar thing in Buddhism. You're supposed to count the beads. The action is pointless. The focused on something that's repetitive and that you need to stay focused, that's the mechanism. So it's the same thing, man. It's
if you've ever been in a situation where you've lost yourself in work or in a creative process or in anything, right? Yeah. That is in itself a type of...
It's flow.
Yeah.
Like it's... flow's like a fantastically healthy thing for the human brain to do, you know? And it's like, maybe this is part of why crafting is so wonderful, because you feel so much more well-rounded after you've done. Just some chainmail there, folks. It's like you're learning in that flow state stuff that you might not figure out with your conscious state.
And occasionally stuff will pop into your head, like, as you said, Matt, like, what's my character doing while they're making this, right? Yeah. Because that's the whole thing. You're trying to represent that my character made this thing. Like, so my character sat there and brewed all of these potions or whatever, or has written this book. Where is he sitting? What is he doing? You know, what journey did he go through?
Well, you're probably thinking about being fancier than the rest of the How can I wear fancier clothes and get into better parties?
Yeah, and spend it all on gambling dens.
Which important people could I be friends with this event? You know?
Yeah.
How much more can I spend on cocktails?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
But this is the wonderful thing about Empire and LARP in general is it's such an excuse to be creative.
Yeah.
And it's given me in my creative career in real life, it's given me such a focus to improve and to do more things that I never would have done before. And I'm sure that both of you would agree, you probably never would have done as much crafting as you
Never ever would have attempted any of the things I've done. Like the idea of making Lamlar armor or something, which to me is a really massive deal. To other people, they probably churn it out. I mean, to you guys, it's probably not such a big deal. But like, to me, it's like spending 50, 60 hours of my life like doing all of that and putting it all together and working out how it works was just something that's like, no, Ian like 3 years ago would not do that, but I did. Like, so Ian now has. It's pretty crazy.
It comes down to those, like me writing a limerick or doing creative stuff. That's fucking cool. Never thought I'd do that. That's a new skill that I'm learning. But I just missed the point of what I was about to say. I had a really interesting point that I can't remember now, but it was good, I assure you.
This is the wonderful thing that you can, when you take the Empire events in isolation, they're like 4 weekends of a year. But actually, the amount of influence it has on your life in general is so much greater, and that in a good way.
Got it. It's back.
Yeah.
I've started pyrography. Yeah, I don't really say it. I've read it a lot, but not really said it out loud. Which is basically where you get like it's like, think of it like a soldering iron, and basically you burn onto wood, right? I do that as a hobby now. I'm terrible at it, by the way, so I don't know whether I'll have anything worth selling by the time I get to the event. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm sat there watching TV, and I'm there burning away and doing all these little pans. I love it. Yeah, it's separate from LARP now. It's its own thing. I just enjoy doing when I'm around the house. Like, in fact, like I said, if any of it's going to be worth it, some people might get in gifts maybe, but I won't expect anyone to wear it. By the way, if I do, but yeah, I don't think I'll ever get to the point where there's something worth buying. But I find it really therapeutic and fun to do.
You'll have to show me later. Actually, I'd actually like to sort of.
Well, you can give it a blast, man. It's
I'm up for it. It looks really good fun.
It's actually how I made the Ashbourne banner.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh right. It's so good though, isn't it? It's kind of
really nice.
It's like drawing, but way more dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
drawing with fire.
Yeah.
Like,
also, I like the way that like if you make a mistake, like there's no like you can't rub it out. It's done.
Yeah.
So you can make this beautiful thing and then just fuck it right at the end. You're like, God damn it!
But that's all part of it, right? And that's like any kit or anything you're crafting. There is kind of there's an inbuilt narrative into you doing the thing, right, and taking that to the event, and it's never quite perfect.
I'm a little lazy. I'm one of those people that are so I wanted to have a seashell necklace, right, because I'm a seafarer, and I thought like Navarre take things from where they're around, they incorporate it. So seashells, brilliant, Dave. I looked up how much it costs to buy a bag full of seashells and then all the bits to make a necklace. And I worked out it's cheaper to buy the necklace, right? Yeah. So that's why I did that. I had the intention to go through the whole process and make my own, but then I was like, actually, I can just buy one cheaper.
And I think there are limits and things.
And to be fair, it freed up time for me to burn more wood, so that's fine.
I mean, I think there are, but I mean, like, you're not necessarily, going to sit there and spin your own yarn and all this kind of stuff. There are kind of, I mean, maybe you will. Who knows?
Some people do.
But like, yeah, I mean, but you kind of get to choose how far you want to take it and what you want to explore through crafting. And I think the reward of it is so high.
I think it's more like it's a vehicle. So some people might love making chainmail, whereas some people might love sewing fabric. Right? There's lots of aspects to this that you can do your own thing. Like there's loads of people out there who sell woolen wear, knitwear. Yeah. I mean, you can buy all sorts. Hell, I bought a carrot whenever it was. Have you seen those kids that are hustling carrots?
No.
Oh my god. Is that where Dave kept getting them from?
There's a couple of young people. I don't know how I want to call them kids, but they were young, and they were like, "I'm like, what are you guys hustling?" And they went, "Carrot." They were like, "There's a thing full of carrots," and I was like, "How much are they?" I think it was 2 rings, per carrot.
I was going to say crowns.
So like, crown, yeah. They did.
That's a hell of a game.
They gave me like a whole sales pitch on why their carrots are awesome and wanting to buy them. And I was just like, you've got to appreciate that hustle. So I was like, how much? I'll tell you what. I'll buy 3 for 5 or whatever. And I bought them and I gave a carrot to somebody else that was sitting there. And I was just like, I've just been completely mugged off by it. Like, you got to appreciate that. So they had a box and a sign and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, but I had a pun as well. I can't remember what the pun was, but as soon as they hit me with a pun, I was like,
oh man,
shut up and take my money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You also got to think how much enjoyment would they have gotten out of that?
Yes.
for you, buying a stupid little carrot off them.
I think they're the novelty of them shifting carrots had already lost by the time they got to me, because I think they had shifted like bags of carrots, man. Like, yeah, they were just they were already.
I mean, carrots are the power snack of the Orc Nation. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah,
I felt better. I
felt better after eating the carrot. So,
Fantastic.
maybe it was worth the. I got more refreshment out of that than I have some of the beer I buy when I'm at Empire. So.
But isn't it weird, like, a fairly, from the outside, mundane interaction like that, buying a carrot from somebody, can actually be, like,
That's
really good fun
it's
and
game,
really
though.
good
It's
game.
great,
Like,
yeah.
and the fact is that it's not just that you're literally walking up like you would on the street, like, to a vendor and, like, here you go, I want to buy this bag of carrots. It's like, pitch me the carrots, right? Pitch me the carrots in character. And why they're the best carrots in the world. And then you telling me the story. To be honest with you, as soon as I'm asking you to tell the story, I'm probably going to be buying your carrot. But I want you know what I mean?
I think there's one thing that, like, selling items is like, it's because you can sell items and then be like, when you find out how rich folk are, you're like, why the fuck am I even doing this? Like, why am I making like 5 rings of every sale that I have to work for so fucking hard? And then I'm like, why don't you try my product? It's prosperity, so try some. And then you get like a third back from how much you're putting out there, and you're like, fuck this, right? Whereas now I start to view it more like, it isn't. Well, hopefully there I am dreaming again that we're going to make some profit, but it's actually a really good vehicle to go and talk to people.
Yeah, the real
right?
transaction is game, right? That's the real transaction that's
exactly.
taking place. It's game, right? You're buying game and you're selling game at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it rewarding, right? If it
Also,
literally was just a job of walking around and selling carrots for like conversation,
I need
it
to
would be
also
lame.
accept some people just don't want to buy shit, and that's okay. Because
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that just like, you're a fucking challenge to me now. Like, why don't you? You haven't even seen what I've got. You know what I mean? Like, you're buying something in here, even if it's heavily discounted. Like, it's
always be hustling.
yeah. I'm pretty hyped for my my sales game next event though. I've got like a few things lined up. So if you see me, we're so poor.
Oh, you've got to put things in the public auction.
I keep meaning. I
had my portrait auctioned last event.
You had a portrait?
Of course, I have a portrait.
Had a portrait.
I had a portrait. I got 2 of them.
Oh,
I
you
made
sold
that.
your portrait? This is even more weird. So one, you have a portrait, and 2, you sold it?
Well,
Who bought it?
it was.
Oh, do you know
sold
what I
on my
really
behalf.
need in the Kazi? A good picture of Skywise Fowl to
Just
look over
stroking
me.
lovingly stroking
Yeah,
your
what is
portrait.
it?
I believe it.
What if
actually
it's one
sold
of
as part of a
those
set.
those weird anime pillows that people sleep with, and they're like, "Good night, Fowl." And they're like, "All right, just one little smooch before sleep." Then. You know? Do you know the person that bought it?
I do, yeah.
Do you trust them not to do weird things with your image?
Whatever they want to do with it, that's up to them.
Oh wow! All right, let's talk about because both of us are involved in, for a lack of a better term, media and LARP, right?
Yeah.
And we've always we've tried to come into it obviously going bugger all before LARP, before doing it, not really understanding what the rules are, and really doing it, you realise there aren't really any actual rules. There's just opinions on what is right and not, right? So, let's go back. Why the Orc Planet? How did that start?
Okay, so I've always wanted to sort of film what I do when I make stuff, and I've never really, I only recently got a smartphone. I've never really had the sort of the get up and go and the tech to just film what I do. And Sammy really sort of started off for us by wanting to do like a making of the belt video, and he thought, we'll make a series of it and we'll see how it goes, and if we enjoy filming ourselves, we'll carry on and do some more stuff. And we've, I say we, obviously you've got your own opinion about it, but I feel like I've always done it for us. And I like the idea that, when I'm old and grey, I'll be able to look back at my young self and what I was doing and think, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like I've always wanted to do vlogs for since the first time I went LARPing. I found Momo's channel the week before, and I was like, wow, I should do this so that I could like look back on what I did and go, wow, that was really stupid.
Yeah, there is though a huge like personal archive almost element to it, because this is a point in time
for us, especially. Like it's a really nice like log of where we're at. Like I can't now know what it's like to be a new player.
Yeah.
But I can go back and I can listen to it and be like, oh shit, that's what you were like when you were a new player. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's even if it is incredibly cringe. But
I mean, the thing
it's for
I
your
find.
own, like, you know, you can see how you've grown.
Yeah, you
Developed.
can. Yeah. No, you're right though.
we'll be like, man, I was awesome back then. Look at me now. Oh my god.
No, the thing I find that's strange is obviously we live in a culture where everyone photographs and videos everything. But I realise actually I've not really got any pictures of me as Matt. I've got loads of me in costumes. There's not really any of me, but having the channel and filming myself doing stuff, I realise I've actually got a little bit of a log of me in reality. Which is,
and cool. Doing something that you enjoy as well, right? Like it's not just mundane stuff. It's like you get to
the podcast is a hobby.
Yeah.
That's it's a hobby now for me.
Yeah.
Like it's something I do now that is auxiliary to LARP. It's like I enjoy the process. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy coming and meeting fun people and having conversations with them. So that's how it kind of works.
And
and
it's easy for me to sort of say that as well, but like essentially Dave does all the work, right?
No, that's not true. That's not true. You've done a few episodes, right?
Yeah. Well, I won.
One.
Two.
Oh, yeah.
Two actually. No.
1 out of 39 isn't bad.
Yeah.
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 But no, I think it's like.
I know that feeling. It's okay.
But it's like I think it's like from it's fun, right? And I think when we first started doing it, I'm talking now to anyone that is tempted to do something the same. I felt that like pressure that didn't actually necessarily exist from the community. Like I was really worried about being disrespectful and coming in and making a few mistakes. And there have been people that have come a cropper, i.e. like one story I remember hearing was someone filming in an area. It was time out, I think, but it was still like you're kind of fucking with other people in that situation, right? Like they're in the back of a shot or all this other stuff that goes along with it, and you're like, I think there is boundaries, and we bump across those boundaries sometimes with talking about plot, right? I think that's the biggest danger for what we do is accidentally giving away plot or wrecking other people's game by giving their story away, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where the videos that we do when it's us talking about our events, they are the most popular and the most sort of wide appealing, but I in particular have got to be very careful about what I say.
Especially with your position right now.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want in any way to use it as a platform to influence people's in-character
I think this is the other thing, which is that they're kind of like, we were talking about this earlier, that not idea of a LARP celebrity. Like, as soon as that happens, if that ever happens, then we're going to put the whole thing down and walk away from it. Because we certainly don't want game affected by our presence in social media, right? Like, that would be so against what we're after, right? It's,
I mean, if people want to make videos about what they do and stuff, then there should be no reason why you don't. And I don't want to say this to stop people.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd done it sooner. I really, because I enjoy.
Well, do all we did and just do it before you know what you're doing, basically.
Yeah, it's unfortunately though you're gonna get people who metagame in any situation, and it's really annoying.
And there's also people that might get like I worry about what version of me are people getting, right? Like I can sit here and have a conversation with you. You can get a lot more nuance in what I'm saying and the impression that I'm trying to give it. You can build up an entire idea of who I am as a person from what you've listened to, which might be way off about my actual feelings, or I said something in an offhand way that sticks to people. That I worry about that as well, that kind of exposure and being like someone being like, he's like this, and I'm like, I'm not like that at all. That's just like something I said one time, you know.
I mean, sorry, go for it.
We actually had it in one of our videos. Like, I got really cautious about what I say, like, since I realised, but like I didn't twig immediately. I saw the thing and went, oh, I don't remember saying that. I see. And then like
it's
it didn't
hard,
sort of
right?
twig until like a couple of events later. I was like, oh, they got it off the video.
Yeah.
And
oh
like,
shit. That's awful.
So it's really made me go like, I don't want to sort of go really deep into
I think this
what
is
my character's thinking.
We have like motivation, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like what why do we do it, right? Like, and I think like we started off doing it because it was a fun thing to do, and now it's developing into something else. But the idea of it becoming something like where we make money off it, where it's a career, like none of these are things for us. Like they're not even things that I can even in my wildest fancy, or whether maybe even would I want that. Like I don't know. I like the fact it's so amateur, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we do so much stuff that it's like I would never have enough time to invest in doing this full time, and as much as I enjoy it, it's always going to be a sort of an aside, and I think we've always got to remember why, like you say, why we do this stuff. And it's I'm not going to stop doing our sort of they're not reaction videos. I like summary videos of the events because we do them for ourselves, and that's the important thing. If other people enjoy watching them, amazing.
Yeah.
But
we always say this, right? It's like the dear listener, you enjoying this is a byproduct of us having a good conversation, right? Yeah. I mean, me and Ian were talking about this on the car here, that like when we stop being passionate about LARP and stop enjoying the podcast will be unlistenable. Yeah. Because but it would already be dead by the time we got to that stage, because the person listening would be like, wow, they're just fucking phoning this shit in now, huh? Do you know what I mean? Or clearly he's not happy about what's going on here, and it won't be as fun or enjoyable.
I hope we'd... Yeah, I think that's going to be way off because I'm just so hyped about LARP. But I'd hope that if we got to that point, we would just end it, right? Yeah. And I think that would be how it would be. It's like if we kind of realised it wasn't something we wanted to do anymore, we wouldn't do it anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's one of the things that I find hard to remember is I'm still in that mindset where if I'm making anything, I feel like, I should be fitting this. I should be doing that extra thing just so it's there, and because why am I not? And then I realise, well, I'm filming it for myself because I enjoy it. It takes a lot of time and effort. If I'm not feeling it, I shouldn't feel worried that I'm not doing it. But it is hard to remember that when you're sort of trying to grow stuff and seemingly trying to do a million things at once.
Size is also important. We're at like I love where we're at now. We have like a couple of hundred people who are like really into the podcast and they love listening to it, right? But I wouldn't ever want that to be thousands of people, because the people we have now, they know what to expect from the podcast. They enjoy what we do, but there's no expectation there of like, do this, right? Like they're all just really fucking supportive. We have the little messages that we get are just, they're so nice and supportive, and like it really means a lot to us when people, it's like fucking people from like all other countries around the world. It's like, it's just cool. What an age we live in, where someone in South Africa can message me and be like, hey, I'm doing a LARP, it's really good fun, but I really appreciate hearing what you guys have to say. It's just like, holy shit, that's amazing. For a bunch of idiots that don't know what they're talking about, giving bad advice to people, you know?
Because me and Dave don't live... I mean, we're kind of best mates who grew up with each other from like when we were 3. So it's like... But we don't kind of live sort of near each other. Well, not super far away, but we don't... Yeah. So it's like we have to sort of commute to make it happen and stuff. So it's also just like a really good excuse just to go over and see my best mate.
Yeah,
like,
I'm sure you're the same though. It's nice to, like, when we get back from LARP, it's nice to decompress and talk about it. That's all you want to do, right? Is sit down with people that like had the same experience from you.
You can keep the enjoyment of the event going for longer, and it's I find it really difficult to remember what I did.
Yeah,
you get so much done, and it's like we said before, it's so compressed into such a short amount of time that I can't remember what I did on Friday. And until you talk through it and you hear other people's experience and you hear what they did, you sort of remember, oh, well, I was doing this at that time. And it's nice to... I used to write a little... I've got a journal that I used to write down everything I did of every event. And I started that and I did it for about 8 events.
That must be cool to read, though.
I've never read it. But I stopped for a couple of events because I couldn't remember what I did, and then I sort of...
the same person. Oh, Fal, I'm going to read your journal to you.
One day I'll pick it up and I'll be like, what on earth is this? This is rubbish. But I got annoyed with myself for not keeping it up, and then I had to realise sort of why I was doing it.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, sometimes you don't have the time, and sometimes you just forget because you do so many things.
Well, one thing I really like is I love watching your stuff. I don't watch everything, but I watch like a whole bunch of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of just have a bit of froth and hear other people's point of view. But it's also cool seeing like, because there are a couple of different groups that do odd videos here and there on it. I love watching that stuff. I've got no idea what it's like to be a Dornish person and what they get up to. So it's like, it's the same world, but a very different attitude towards it or interaction with it. One, because of their own personality types, and two, because of their nation or the role that they're playing. So like, I think you get a very narrow band just from listening to one group, right? Like, we play the game a certain way, and that's dictated by the Navarre and our personalities. Whereas you could listen to someone else that has very similar, on the surface, expectations of their character, but a very different way they interact with the world or present it.
I think on paper you could play the exact same game as 10 other people, but if you're all in different nations, it's going to be entirely different.
Yeah.
Because your environment and your surroundings are just so far removed.
I talked to Matt P and Andy Raff recently for the podcast, and they were talking about you could play each different nation with the same role effectively in each different nation and have vastly different experiences in each one. I think that's very true, actually. You know, like we were talking before the episode about potentially joining. Well, which nation would you join if you were going to join a nation? If you would, blah 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 blah. But I think there's like you'd be surprised at what answers people would come up with, right? Like you saying like, Urizen, that would be fun. Whereas I'm like, I like the people in Urizen, but I wouldn't want to join them as a nation. Whereas the Brass Coast, way different from that. That seems more appealing to me. So,
well, weirdly, like for example, with Urizen, I've had like a lot of interactions with them, but I don't know. Maybe I'd do something completely different. Like actually, orcs are very tempting. Like I find the idea of
that feels like to me Endgame. Like that feels like the final Valhalla. You know what I mean? Like I have become. Do you know what I mean?
I think once you put that orc mask on, that's not a monster mask, and you do embody that role, you kind of realise, this is it forever now. I'm not going to take this mask off again. But I would absolutely love to play, in the Marches or in Wintermark, or there's so many amazing briefs that I don't get to see. That I would love to get involved
I think
with.
you could legitimately walk up to any player and say, "Why is your nation the best?" They would tell you, and you could probably say, "Fair enough." Fair enough. I can completely see.
That'd be wrong, obviously. But,
the Orcs are obviously the best.
Navarre away. Navarre, the best nation by far. If it rhymes, then do you know what I mean? So
just tear the arms off of anyone who doesn't agree.
Please come down Murder Alley. Don't mind the name.
Let's start calling Murder Alley Friendship Avenue.
I know. We've got to
I'm
put an
fucking
end to that.
disgusted, man. Like I gotta shank some people just to get the rep back. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you've got to keep up appearances.
Yeah, just like...
I'm not sure what's happened to this neighbourhood.
Yeah, it's really gone downhill. Downhill. Like, it's all singing and friendship and... it's disgusting, man. Like, before I was like, oh, fuck. Like, when people would talk about Murder Alley and we'd be like, hold on, that's where we live. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we used to joke saying, like, well, the rent's cheap. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's... but now it's like, Friendship Avenue? Fuck that. Like... I need to hire some assassins, get some people murdered down there, get some real stabby action going on, because I'm not having it, dude. I'm not having it. Right. Let's talk about the future of the Empire, Mr.
The future of the Empire. We're living in exciting times, aren't we?
Really exciting times. It's like, I feel like, especially on the political side of it, on all aspects of the game, to be fair, there's like, borders being stretched, armies not meeting the demands that they're after, the political system seems in turmoil, selfish actions are hindering from the inside. I mean, it's pretty interesting, right? Also, World War One's about to start, which is hanging over.
I mean, if you look back at how long the game's been going now, I think it's 7. Are we on the 8th year or are we on the 7th year? We're on enough years that there's a lot of them. There have been quite a few large events that have sort of polarised the game. You had the Morn. That was a massive thing that went on. It involved so many people.
Just explain what the Morn is.
So that was one of the largest conflicts we had that spanned a number of events, possibly a few years, that sort of culminated in us getting this territory back from the Jotun.
massive
and
cost.
at massive cost. And there are now orcs living in the Empire because of it that people are interacting with. There were massive building projects that went on to rebuild the territory from everything that was lost.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of there will be whole are they households in the marches or houses that would have been lost to the conflict, and then we had the coronation of a new throne, and that was a massive event. And I remember this was the start of our lives
I
as
think that was
orcs.
our second event.
And I'd never felt so patriotic in my life. In this made-up world that there's this throne in front of you, and it's like, oh, this is amazing, and you're singing the national anthem. And now we've lost the throne, and there might be a new one, or there might not be. There's so many big events that you can get involved in, and you can get involved in them on so many different levels. Yeah, it's amazing.
Even if you just want to sit back and enjoy the ride, right?
Yeah.
Like if your entire game is I'm going to go and buy booze with fake money and go and fight, right? That's your whole weekend, which is perfectly legit. We did that for many, many events. Well, guess what? You're going to do a lot of fighting coming up, probably. There's going to be all sorts of it. And you're going to fight probably random people from random nations you haven't even heard of before who are going to throw all sorts of crazy magical shit at you, which you didn't even expect. So there's even if things do go horribly wrong, which they might, it's still going to be really entertaining to watch it fall, if that makes sense.
If we won, if the way was spread to all creation, and all the barbarians were either brought in or eradicated, and we were at peace, what game would you play? You need, it's like we said before, you need a good antagonist. You need a good competitor.
When you talk to fucking PD about it, and they're like, there is fail states to this, right? They're not. The game isn't just to be played. It's like it can end in terrible circumstances, real world effects. If you lose an army, we're not going to write it back in. Do you know what I mean? Like it's gone.
If the Thor decided to invade at an opportunistic time, they could just roll down 4 territories and take them. There's nothing you could do about them, and that would be directly because of player actions.
And I think that's the important thing, right? Like you need it, and that's where it's that you need to feel like the players are influencing the world in some way. And it's very difficult for one person individually to influence the world, but the players collectively, the decisions they make.
Case in point, the Liberty Pact.
Yeah.
Right? The Liberty Pact is good intentioned, right? And it means well, but it might cause World War One. Right? Is the Liberty Pact good or bad after 20 million people die and regions burn, right? Because of the principle. These are very real world things which we get to play around with in a fantasy setting, which I find absolutely fascinating. I mean, like when you're piling up dead bodies and you're like, well, at least we made it clear we don't like slavery. Do you know what I mean? Like it's where is that cost, and how much flesh do you put on the other side of that scale to make it worthwhile?
Well, that's the thing. You kind of look at the people that we consider the bad guys, and they're not. I don't consider the Jotun to be bad guys at all. No, it's I really feel like a lot of the times that I've had interaction with them, I'm like, that's fair enough. You feel that way. You know what I mean? I think it's also very easy to consider them the good guys. Because you're only looking at one small aspect of them. You don't see the horrific regime and the pyramid scheme that they've got going on.
But you could say that about the Empire, right? Oh, yeah. Like it's the nature of grey, which is very real. Like whenever you talk to anyone who's like a young buck coming up and they just want to talk to you about history, and it's just like history is very easy to view from the distance we have on it, right? With our own morality and structures. Turns out people aren't goodies or baddies. Anyone, like everyone, is a grey individual, myself included. Right? Like there are no such things as goodies or baddies in reality. Yeah.
The Mongol invasions allowed sort of like
look at all the prosperity that allowed here. Yeah. Just because a few cities had to be burnt at the stake and
huge amounts of
industrial levels of killing people. I mean. The end result was fantastic.
And we're the beneficiaries, right? Like you can look back on events, and you're not the people to sort of necessarily say whether it was a good or bad thing, because you're not the person paying the price at the time.
How much do you think, because PD obviously do write game, right? Do you ever feel? How do I word this? Like I haven't seen a good example of it, but do PD ever react to the game? it's a stupid statement. What I'm trying to say is, do they like, oh, you're trying to do this and you're too successful and PD will shut you down, right? Like if you try to do that, I haven't seen anything like that.
I mean,
right?
the Liberty Pact was too successful.
It's
that was from all accounts, that was a massive bit of plot that they had put a lot of time into, a lot of effort. There were a lot of incredibly well briefed NPCs that were on those meetings and encounters and stuff, and we prepared so well that it succeeded, and it was not supposed to be that quick. And PD didn't turn around and say, "Well, we're going to put a spanner in the works, and there's all these things that you're going to contend with." They were just like, "No, you did it. You've done it. Yeah. Well done."
But it's also
like, the next thing. Let's put all these sanctions and embargoes on you.
But the Liberty Pact is such a good is a great example of something that's player led, that affects the world, that will develop plot from PD that feeds back into it, right? Because there is so much potential about what might happen, and a lot of that might not be very good for the Empire. Some of it might be, but long term it might be fantastic for the Empire, right? Like we just don't know.
I mean, there is a potential that with all these trade things going on with all the other foreign nations, the Empire could in effect go bankrupt, and we could just dissolve into not being a sustainable civilization because we've taken a moral stance.
Well, power reach, right? Like even like any military or even political endeavour, to be fair, you have to understand the limits of your own power, right? Like
and logistics of power as well.
Also, we're talking about a world where Jam is like 4 weeks sailing away or something like that. It's like there's a lot of this stuff is distant, right? Like and hard to coordinate. You're not going to be able to land armies in Jam, right? Or and supply them and keep them going and all that to go well, right? Yeah. You could effectively roll that dice and just lose it immediately and then they land, right?
I mean, we were at war with Sumar for years, but there was never a battle.
Yeah.
We never fought because we were so far away, but we were in principle at war.
Yeah.
Shaking your fist.
Those
guys, shaking their fist back at you.
Those people over there that are basically the same as us. But you're slightly different.
Seem really nice, and I appreciate your view of the world. You scum.
Your hat's a different
colour.
Yeah. What are you?
I don't like that accent you got there. I think I think what happens next and how that all plays out. I think it's like from my point of view, I'm looking forward to being on the periphery. Thank you. I can't speak today. And kind of like just experience it as a player. I think we're going to get to fight all sorts of wonderful looking people over there and kill them. Which is exciting.
Or run away from them.
Bravely.
I think the interesting thing that's happening at the moment is, because everything's left so open, so wide, anyone, and I mean anyone, could just come and seize power.
Yeah.
You know, anyone could start a coup.
Yeah.
Shake things
anyone
up.
could.
No, I think the real world looks a lot like the 1930s right now, right? So maybe I've been thinking about that a lot recently and kind of looking at things where what do grassroots political upheaval look like? How do they form? How does that become effective? When does it become a line where the state has to intervene in something that's happening? What happens if those people turn around and then say machete a bunch of inquisitors, and then what do you do then?
Yeah.
Right? Like we've had situations where the militia have come into Navarre and then Navarre have made it quite clear you're not leaving with them today, and it's a concession the next day that they're allowed to arrest them. It's not that they're using the paper nature of their authority suddenly becomes so obvious, right? I don't know. How many players do you think it would take? I don't think it would take that many. Well, and also, especially once you raise the banner of fuck this, you may well find that there are more people that agree with you who are willing to also do that, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think we have to remember that Anvil is not everyone in the Empire.
Yes.
And yes, there could be a coup, and 50 or so Imperial Orcs in Anvil could just decide, we've had enough, Scarsind is ours, you've done nothing for us recently, we've given you everything we've got and we're not getting anything in return.
Yeah.
And we could have a fight and all die, and nothing could come of it because the other Orcs in Scarsind could be like, well, they don't talk for us.
Well,
I think it's more like if today's scenario that I'm talking about, what you do is you kill a bunch of very important people, you rip out the power structure. Like, you kill a bunch of senators.
Yeah.
Like, your imperial political system no longer works because the people that are in those positions are all dead. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's not necessarily saying that, they're going to rise to power and take over in a coup like that, but they could certainly change the landscape of what the empire looks like.
I mean,
right?
that is exactly how the game started.
Yeah.
A coup.
No,
multiple. Like everybody's dead, and all the roles need to be replaced.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Empress
yeah.
Britta took everyone. For some reason, everyone apart from Magistrate Karkovich.
Everyone, but you stay.
And they all died. So we had to start again.
Well, I find it interesting how, like, the old Empress used to not old. She's a young lady, but like the previous. Thank you. Yeah. Like when she's on the field, and I was like, holy shit! Like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing here? Like,
but how inspirational was it to have her there?
Yeah.
To have the throne, the highest point in the empire, there within touching distance,
barking orders at people, you know.
And you get to see why that happened in the past, right? Why kings took the field.
Do you know one thing?
It
is
right?
cool when you see, because as Val, you are a big whoop, right? Like, it's but you are though, right? Yeah. It's cool, and it's funny interacting with people that are big whoop, right? Like, it's like from a fairly nobody character that I am.
Yeah,
it's fucking cool interacting with people like that, like hustling senators and running around trying to get people. You're like, these people are really fucking cool. Like, a lot of them earned their place as being a senator, right? So they're experienced players, they're fun to be around. And some of them were just like, they would just throw curveballs at you constantly. Like, hi, what do you want? And I'll be like, I want this and this. And they'll be like, but what about this? And you'll be like, well, fuck me, I didn't think about that.
But it's interesting.
That's an excellent point you have there. Let me just pad this out with my brain. Come on, brain, come on, brain, come on, brain.
So that's a good thing about the Orc Master that Alex keeps picking up on. It's like, people can't see you when you have that moment of so you just sort of sit there and like your face doesn't change, but behind it you're just going, what the fuck do I say now?
I think I have one of those faces that, like, I find it really hard to hide my emotions. So say if I don't like something, I'll be like, big frown, and it'll be like, come on, poker face now. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. I do see the benefit maybe of also, like, when you talk to orcs, I think it really helps with the orc brief. Because sometimes you aren't very expressive, which is actually works, because when you're being stopped at the door, who the fuck are you, bloody blah blah, and then that reminds me, I need to talk to you about something afterwards. But it's kind of it's kind of fun. Like, I look forward to getting to know some orcs better, I think.
You should come and visit.
Yeah,
we've tried.
Like, not like with a towel over your head. That doesn't count.
Stumbling around the night, stumbling over everything. Yeah.
Accidentally wandering in.
Yeah, I don't think I've been during time in the orc camp sober.
No,
that's never happened.
Start like making a bit of a ruckus at the door. Everyone will come.
No, I know. I've seen what happens to those people. That's the problem. Yeah,
like, just you. What?
I'll say that. Like, last time I went, it was funny because I've always gone to the gate and had no real good reason why I'm there. And then they went. They were like, "Who are you and what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm here to see Scarways Fell." And they were like, "Well, how do you know him?" Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Well, he gave me this." And I showed them the bit, and they were like, "In you come!" And they were so immediately like, "I've got a golden ticket." And like, they were so nice to me. They were just like, the immediate flip of, like, from being uber aggressive to "Who the fuck are you and what do you want?" to "Oh, why didn't you say it in the first place?" Do you know what I mean? Sorry for being so rude. Sorry, I ruffled you up there a little bit, you know. And then they let me in.
But this is the thing I think people should realise is, it might seem like the orcs try and keep people out, but what they want to keep out is tourists.
That's who we were. 100%.
I think you have to, once you realise what the orc camp symbolises, it makes perfect sense as to the role play that goes around it. It's our nation is in effect one player group. So it's like if you were to, if we were to just stumble upon your tent and open doors and decide to come and have a look around.
Never do that, by the way, because Jesus, you won't be able to unsee what you see.
Yeah.
Right?
But that's how we deem the door to the orc camp.
Yeah,
it's almost an open tent.
But it also
house.
It creates loads of game, because not only is it on brief and it makes sense and all the rest of it that goes with it, and also gives an idea of the historical significance of what the Orcs are and what them being part of the Empire, of course there's fucking distance there, right? And it makes a lot of sense. It also means that people sometimes hate the Orcs, right? And it's like but you can see again, like we're talking about with the grey aspect of everything. It's okay. Yeah. Because everyone's justified in their own positions, right? Because they're all seeing it from their point of view. Yeah. I don't like the Orcs because they're rude to me when I try and get in.
If nobody gave a shit that you were an Orc at all, like if there was no story at all involved in being an Orc, if it meant nothing to anyone, then essentially,
what's the point?
Do you know what I mean? That it has to represent something.
Yeah, there would literally be like no game for us.
Yeah,
if there weren't people who were like.
We saw a play where they had like an Orc head.
Oh,
and
man,
they were like,
so bad.
I remember like because we were just like walking along, me and Ian, and I think it's League, was it?
No, it's the Marches.
The Marches.
We were watching like
I remember having it's a really fun play where it's all like light-hearted and kind of slapstick, and then like this Orc head comes in. We were just like,
and they were acting like it was like an actor.
I'm so stupid. Look at me, I can't read. And so as a me and Ian were just like, Jesus Christ!
It was crazy. We were just like. We went from laughing at it because it was a funny play to being like horrified because it was like and
everyone's laughing around us. And we're just like, what the fuck have we walked into?
I think what's funny is if any other nation had done that, I think they would have gotten rolled by the Orcs.
Yeah,
but because it was the Marches, we're like, yeah, we like you guys.
We'll let them have this one.
All right, don't do it again.
I'd be curious, man. I know there are players that I know that I forget, and I'm like, hey man, I'm just going to go and talk to Fal, or just going to go and visit the Orcs, or whatever. He goes, fucking hate Orcs. And I'm like, oh, I forgot, you're a racist. I completely forgot. Lovely chap, bit of a racist. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean that's a good bit of the game. There should be characters who don't like Orcs.
Yeah.
There should be highborn characters that don't want the Orcs to be in the Empire.
In fact, I actually think that there should be more prejudice against Orcs in the game.
I think.
So I was just about to say, like, it's actually a really hard thing to keep up with because, like, obviously we've spoken about it before. The Orcs are quite intimidating, and they're also really nice.
Yeah.
So like when
they always offer me
to be
booze
racist against them,
whenever I interact with any Orc, they always offer me booze, and I just can't stay mad at someone that offers me booze like that.
Exactly.
Like
I mean, the biggest difficulty I see with characters who are racist, obviously not the people.
Yeah.
Just to clarify,
it's a whole different story. Yeah.
If I have a highborn spit at my feet or something, and then not want to interact with me because I'm an Orc, there's no game there.
Yeah.
If you're overtly anti-Orc and you're shouting in someone's face and you tell them, get out, no droids here, that's not fun. We'll just walk off and ignore you and won't interact with you.
Yeah, they want crime in the Empire to be sort of smart and well thought out, and not just like,
but the nature
I shank you by the loos.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
But crime's really important because there's crimes that we now. If I threaten to kill you, that's breaking a law, right?
Yeah.
In Empire, you can say anything you fucking want, right? There's no libel, there's no like threatening, there's none of that's a crime. It's only when I actually stab you. Yeah. So there's loads of stuff which is part of the game, which is just like you can just be a dick if you wanted, right? Like, but I would say you have to kind of, if that's your character, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there must be people that just enjoy going to Empire just to be a dick because they are a dick, but maybe not in the spirit of the game.
I mean,
Ian, there's 2,000 people. There's gonna be dicks there. You know what I mean? If you said like 1 in 100 people are a dick,
yeah, for sure. But
you're still looking at a fair few dicks showing up in the field, right? Like, just very few of them.
Yeah.
I mean, just going back to a previous point, just to make sort of anti-Orc sentiments and stuff interesting. The two best ones I've seen, and they're common knowledge, so it doesn't matter I'm saying them, is if you go into a highborn chapter house, they'll usually have a water bowl to wash your fingers.
Yeah.
Some have two. One for humans and
Really?
one for orcs. That's
cool.
a really interesting, subtle thing that's there.
I love that.
Makes it obvious, and that's interesting game. That's interesting role play.
I love that.
And the other one is if you're a priest and you're voting in the General Assembly, if you look at an Orc mandate and just vote against it and don't read it, that's subtle roleplay that hinders that Orc's character, and they might not realise, why did they vote against me? And you go and ask them, and if they don't say why or have an excuse, then that's an interesting way to be anti-orc.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're using orcs
In
as
a
an
way that's
example,
subtle.
but I know people that it isn't just people are racist against orcs. There are people that hate Dawn. There are people that hate Wintermark.
Yeah.
Some of
Lineages,
that's
all
IC,
kinds of
OC
different things,
stuff,
yeah.
but like, who was it? Someone we know was raiding against one nation because of something they'd done. So it was something on the battlefield that they were angry about, and therefore it was like in-game prejudice based on things that had happened to them, right? And I found that really interesting because you're like, oh, I hate this nation because of this one battle where they left us in the lurch.
Yeah.
And as a person, if you're risking your life, I totally get that. Like, you could easily build that resentment to someone who didn't come and help you, or
If all your buddies die, right, because another nation kind of didn't defend them in your eyes or whatever it is.
Orcs
or
are just
whatever
an
it is.
obvious, right? They're
Yeah.
obvious because they're so different from humans, right?
But I mean, that's kind of the first thing you say if you want to play a character that has prejudiced tendencies. The first thing you think of is, oh, I'll just hate orcs.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other avenues
Yeah.
that are completely in character.
Who doesn't like a bit of Briar hate? Am I right, everyone? Am I right?
You know,
Guys?
the highborn not liking lineage because they think humans are pure and magic affects religion. That's a really interesting.
Are they wrong though? Are they wrong though? Come
Can
on.
you prove it?
I think they're great.
The whole Briar story is just like, it's very because like, my first character hated them, so it was like.
And your second character's quite pro them in a way.
No, well, I'm not anti them. I'm like, I wish I could have jumped in on the whole, all the stuff that happened with the story last time, with the briars all sprouting flowers and stuff, and then having weird dreams. Oh, that if there was a time for Irfan to hate, that was it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would have been the golden time for that character. Just running around being like, get the fuck away from me, you freak. We should kill you now. Just having the best time. Burn them all! Burn them all! Yeah. I would have loved it.
Where's the... I got surprised when I found out how much Briar hate there was in the Marchers. Like, I couldn't believe how spiteful they are.
That was one or two people gaming like a motherfucker.
Well, the thing is,
It's
when
not.
Oh, isn't it? There is actually more than that.
when you find out the reason for why Marchers hate briars, it is really justified.
It's
Why?
horrible.
Marchers believe that briars salt the earth in effect when they die,
So they won't bury
so
them.
you can't bury them. So it's this prejudice they have
That's
for
totally
something that's not
justified.
even their fault.
Again, it's the same thing though. We were talking about like I like any of these arguments where you can be like, you can put your hat on either side and be like, I completely see where you're coming from on this. Like, I totally get it. If I was a briar, I'd be like, I'm just a friendly briar who's trying to do my thing, and then the Marchers are like, you directly go against the thing I care about most, which is my turnips. So,
It's like, you're going to make my turnips go bad in 50 years' time. Well,
Not on my watch.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. That's cool.
There's so many aspects to the game which have, and different parts of the different briefs for the different nations that let you sort of just, you can go in any direction in so many different things.
There is a big part of me that would love to be like to play a character that's like pure of heart, even if your OC character's like, that's terrible that you feel that way. Like, really going high guard and embodying high guard. You know what I mean? This kind of like Arthurian style, like honourable.
Are you thinking Dawn? Or
No, the priests kind of overlap, don't they? But they're.
High Guard and
I'm sorry
Dawn
to
are very
Dawn and
similar.
High Guard who just are going to throw, but there is a little bit like the way I understand it is that like Dawn are Age of Chivalry, and that sort of vibe, whereas the High Guard are more like Crusaders.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the difference? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah.
Right. So there's like on the surface, they both wear plate, but underneath there's a different mindset on each of them. Like I love the idea of doing that, like Dawn or High Guard, and just really being heroic and stuff. That looks like a great time. Like
you could just have a great time in every nation, to be honest with you. And as we said before, you could. There's so many different things you could try out, different character archetypes you can give a go.
It's also the 4 events a year, dude.
Yeah.
Like you can only get so much done, and it's also exhausting. So even if you want to, then you can't bring the heat at 11 o'clock on a Saturday after you've done all this stuff because you're fucking knackered. You know what I mean? Like
I remember the times when I had time to have a nap on a Saturday.
I still love a nap. I had a nap after the election, actually, didn't I? Or was that before the election? It was when I was in the Senate. I came home and had a nap, which I
yes.
felt was like that was crazy because I haven't had a nap at LARP in ages, and it was actually fantastic. Yeah,
So
like a good
good.
LARP nap. Maybe we should like arrange an actual official time for naps and just be like, hey, everyone, it's 2:00.
Time to
Go to your tents.
bed.
Yeah, exactly. You can't
Have a
stay here.
siesta.
Yeah.
Keep it down, would you? I'm trying to nap.
Schedule's clear. Everyone,
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah. But then you'd have people running around being like making deals while everyone else is
Yeah,
napping.
yeah.
Bastards, anti-nap wankers.
That'd be the
Yeah,
one
God.
time all the plot comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did you not see all these
Get
foreign
all the
nations?
Eternals
show
on the
up?
field while everyone's sleeping.
All at once.
Yeah. Right, I think we should wrap it up there.
Yep.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
to
it's
see
been
us.
awesome
Yeah.
to play. It's so good.
So nice, yeah. And all those Ashbourne conspiracy people are going to be like, they're going to be on it. It's all part of a plan. Check out their YouTube channel, The Orcs Planet. It's a good time. And we will join you next time for, I don't know when we're going to release these, so there might be another special, there might not.
Yeah,
We don't know.
difficult to know.
So
Well, I
enjoy.
look forward to it.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Cheers. Thanks for listening, and thanks always to our patrons who I always forget to thank. Thank you so much for the petrol money. Thank you guys. Speak to you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Rumour has it there's something out in those fens. Been eating whole families whole, it has.
Some kind of creature?
That's what I hear. Don't know if any bug has seen it and lived to tell the tale, though.
Surely people in this area are used to dealing with the strange beasts that live in these swamps.
Oh yeah, we've seen it all. From man-eating lizards to bugs that will bite your head clean off. Not to mention those pesky marsh walkers. Oh, Beryl, don't get me started on those pesky marsh walkers.
But this thing is different.
Different? It's downright bizarre. Clever bugger from what I hear. Always seems to be one step ahead. Comes in right under people's noses and snatches folks out of their beds.
Curious indeed.
Enough to keep you up at nights, it is.
I bet. Well, if there aren't any boats, it looks like we might have to wade our way across.
I wouldn't fancy your chances. But if you're that keen to get across, you could always try old Jasper.
What's an old Jasper?
He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's got an old punt he uses to get about. Follow me and I'll take you right to his shack.